everybody, it's Lorelei and welcome back to Misericorde. The last time we left off, there was a strange figure in the dark that decapitated a goat, and Hedwig was scared out of her mind. Then after that, we had a interesting encounter with Eustace where she didn't want us to go to the back of the library. That was kind of suspicious, but anyway, without further ado, let's just get right into today's story. Let me assure you, as the door closed behind me, I felt a flare of embarrassment. I was just treated like a total fool, I thought. I had half a mind to turn back around and tell Eustace to stuff her sentimental stories about Katherine and show me the sword under lock and key. I didn't, of course. And thank goodness for that, honestly. No, I won't explain what I mean just yet. Let me tell you something about that chronicler position. It might have taken a fair bit, but it did teach me a thing or two about spinning a good story. I don't like this. Anyway, the cool air of the hallway hit my face hard after being in the stuffy library for so long. I could feel the damp patches around my eyes and cheeks where my tears had been drying. I wiped away my face with my sleeve to try and erase any lingering evidence. Oh, fancy running into you here. Moira was standing just down the hall carrying a tray adorned with a small pitcher and some sliced rye. I was just on my way to bring you and Eustace some luncheon. What is luncheon? That sounds like a very delicious meal. Luncheon? Oh, of course you wouldn't have that before. It's just a snack between meals. Is that allowed? Allowed? Of course! He. Why wouldn't it be? I looked side to side nervously. For what? I'm not really sure. A disapproving superior, or worse, Angela? Moira chuckled again and set the tray down on the stone railing overlooking the cloister and then gestured for me to join her. The little pitcher was full of wine, and there were pieces of crumbly cheese mixed in with the slices of bread. Are they allowed to have wine? I feel like they are not. You can dip the bread in wine if you like. Alright. I picked up a piece of bread and dunked it into the pitcher. The wine turned it quite an odd color that reminded me a bit of bile on flagstone, but I resisted lingering on it too long and popped it into my mouth. That's quite nice, actually. It's called sops. Everyone here loves it, more or less. And the cheese? Goat cheese, from one of the ones Darcy takes care of. Goats. I tried a piece. It was also delicious. This might be a silly question. All this food, is it different from what I was served? I took all my meals in my cell, but I don't remember any of it tasting quite this good. Well, we do a lot of cooking with ingredients from the stores and pantry, and we have to make things last. Maybe you just got unlucky most of the time. Things don't always taste this fresh. Or maybe, well... Oh, nothing. I was just thinking that maybe it tastes so much better because you're not in your cell anymore. That is true as well. I don't understand. Moira took a piece of cheese and chewed it thoughtfully. A new lease on life and all that. Nothing tastes better than freedom. My first instinct was to chide Moira for this comment, but I resisted. Instead, I chose to act the part and say something I imagined someone who belonged in this group of women might say. I would imagine Katherine disagrees that we're free up here. And I suppose by that logic, Eating outside the monastery would taste even better. I was actually gonna say that a king's food must taste impossibly good. I was on my way to that conclusion as well, although I think we might have been approaching it from different angles. But I like the way you think. We should plan a picnic sometime, you and me. We should propose it to the superior. That's a lovely idea. Moira clasped my hands in hers and beamed. Oh, what fun it always is to have someone new here. She let me go and lifted up the tray again. I must be getting the rest of this to Eustace. Where are you off to next, busy bee? I am not sure, actually. I felt like I should sort of make the rounds, so to speak. Get to know what everyone does around here. Grand. Darcy and Charity are busy in the kitchens right now, I think, but I'm sure they wouldn't mind you poking your head in. I'm sure someone's in the cellars around now if you want to learn about the wine. Oh, so many options. Go forth and explore, I say. Explore, I shall. I smiled and bowed my head, and then excused myself to head downstairs. I selfishly opted against bothering the cooks while they were busy with something I'd be eating later, and instead headed towards the stairs. I made my way down to the cloister, and through the downstairs halls, I decided that I might poke my head into the undercroft. It's the cellars again, right? Well, look who it is. Hello, Hedwig. Hello. Done with chronicling already? Yes, actually. Well, there wasn't much to write about yesterday, really. Wasn't there? Did you make sure to immortalize your grand prank? No. Really now, I'm surprised. I would have thought that was the whole point. Yes, how else will anyone know it happened? She definitely should write it down. And I feel like there are a lot of books, like books from the medieval time that have detailed this kind of incident before, and now we are just struggling to make sense of it. I feel like this kind of topics are very interesting. Well, I mostly wrote about the important things, the services, the meals, and so on. Those are the important things, huh? Give yourself a little credit, Hedwig. I'll edit in tomorrow, perhaps. You should. Otherwise, we'll all forget about it eventually. Or pretend we forgot about it. That's right. In war, one must keep score. Or so Adela keeps telling me. War? Relax, we are definitely not planning a counterattack to your door prank. Yes, we've just been discussing faith and whatnot. The Nicene Creed and its many subtleties. Oh, how interesting. Which ones? Which subtleties? They were not discussing any. Fae? Filioque. Filioque? That's... I suppose I wouldn't count that as a subtlety. That would be my contribution. Why not? Ow! I couldn't agree more, Hedwig. I had a habit of understanding things. For effect, you understand? Oh, understating. Understating things, not understanding. Naturally. The pair smiled at me, and I could sense they were politely ushering me onward, so they could continue whatever conversation they'd actually been having. I decided to press a little further, however. What have you two been up to today? I decided I'd see what the others' work around here is like, since I finished early. Well, there isn't exactly much elmoning to do up on this hill, so I've been helping out in the cellars. Oh, what have you been doing? Catherine and Margaret exchanged a glance. This, more or less. Not to sound like our dear friend Eustace, but that's a euphemism. Well, not entirely. If something needs lifting, they'll shout. They being Marta and Flora? Typically, yes. But more often than not around here, helping in the cellars really just means, well, nothing. Standing around, gossiping, wandering around the cloister for a bit. And the superior doesn't mind this? No, steady on. We wouldn't be telling you this if we thought you'd be blabbering on to her about it. I won't. I was just worried you might get in trouble. It's never really been much of an issue. Soup can't be everywhere. And let's keep it that way, Of course. Lovely. I knew you could be trusted. Always said I had a good feeling about her, haven't I, Catherine? That's right, she has. I couldn't help but be filled with a gush of pride at this remark, but did my utmost to tamp it down. Well then, I'll just leave you to do your important work, shall I? Until next time. See you at luncheon, Hedwig. I parted with a gracious smile and walked towards the corridor of barrels I had found Adela and Flora in the day before. Marta was standing next to an open cask. She was holding a wooden ladle, looking thoughtful. Ah, Hedwig. Finished upstairs already? Yes, I am. I felt it'd be nice to get to know everyone's job a little better. Smart girl. Flora could learn a thing or two from you. I heard that. Flora's voice echoed from deep within the rows of barrels. I really enjoy Flora's presence in this. Really keeps the mood bright. Good. I have her check inventory sometimes, especially if she's been acting up. I see. The barrel open in front of Marta smelled absolutely putrid. Nonetheless, she dipped her ladle into the dark liquid and raised it to her lips, sipping gently and furrowing her brow thoughtfully. Is it supposed to smell like that? Truth be told, I haven't a clue. This is a slightly different kind of wine than I'm used to. What kind of wine? From? I must confess I did not know there were different kinds. It's sherry. Adela pestered me to try making it the moment she arrived at the Abbey. Adela really is super friendly. Goodness, she must be very particular. She has expensive taste, yes. We had to get a fancy new distiller set up in the workshop just to try making it. The Abbey could afford that? I was talking to Eustace about her acquisition budget. I try not to think about money most of the time, to tell you the truth, but I've heard the Superior has access to more than you expect. I suppose I wouldn't really know what to expect. Isn't that wrong, though? If it is true, it would certainly mean this Abbey is stuck in a uniquely unfortunate position of having a lot of charity to give and no one to give it to. I'd urge you to quell any Cistercian tendencies. I'm not sure the church could withstand another order fracturing. Marta took another whiff of the unfinished wine in her spoon. She wrinkled her nose and emptied the spoon back into the barrel. Anyhow, there's little use in speculating on speculations. We have a distiller, and all I need to worry about is making sure my sherry isn't a disaster. I can't help but feel like this distiller is something that could play a role in future episodes to come. Might be important. You could hide a dead body in there. You could make wine out of blood. Would you be a dear and find Adela? I need her to tell me if I'm on the right track with this. Of course, where would she be this time of day? She does this and that, so I haven't a clue to tell you the truth. I'm just too old to be given the runaround. I understand. I'll find her. I bowed my head and left the way I came. Seems like we're gonna go around meeting all sorts of people. It turned out I didn't have to go very far. After jogging back up the stairs to the cloister, I decided to check the gardens, where I found Adela and Darcy tending to a row of vegetables. Hedwig, hello! Heya! Hello, Marta actually asked me to find you, Adela. Is she meddling with the sherry again? She is going to ruin it, I swear. Ooh, be careful. Ego. A bunch of Latin words. Sherry is very important and delicate. For sherry, I will swear. Fair enough. Goodbye, my friends. I will speak to you once again. Once I have walloped some sense into Sister Marta. She really is such a personality. Seems like she'll be very fun to be around. With words, Hedwig, do not worry. The old word, well up. Well up? That is correct. I would never hit anyone, although over sherry. No, that's not funny. It is a little funny. Because really, I would not. And that's what makes it funny to say you would. I get it. I suppose we have a very different senses of humor. Adela gave a little approving nod to Darcy and then turned to leave. Would you mind helping me finish what she was helping me with? Of course. What can I do? Pick the rest of these carrots with me and put them in the box. She pointed at a wooden crate half filled with plump, reddish vegetables. Alright then, do I just... You gotta push them down and yank them out like this. Darcy flopped to her knees and gripped a clump of green stamps that were poking up off the soil. She pointed at a little purple mound poking up out of the dirt. Watch this! She pressed the carrot into the earth and then pulled it out of the ground with remarkable ease and tossed it several yards into the crate. It's easy. You try. I knelt down gingerly in the soil, a little apprehensive about getting my frock dirty. I rummaged around in the nearest patch of greens and traced my finger down a stem until I uncovered the top of a carrot and pressed. Nothing happened. Press harder! I gave it my all. The resistance finally broke after a few difficult seconds, and I nearly fell face first into the carrot patch. Oh, there you go. Now pull it out. I regained my composure and removed the carrot from the earth quite easily. Why does that work? You're breaking off some of the little roots, holding it in place. That's miraculous. I never would have guessed. It just works. Plants are wonderful. Thank God for plants. She continued harvesting carrots and I followed suit. There's certainly a lot here. We need as much food as we can get before winter starts, and carrots are good in everything. I hadn't thought about that. What else do you grow for winter? Peas, sprouts, cress, parsnips. Goodness. Leeks, celeriac, beans, beets. And you take care of all of it? With help, but yes, I do. Remarkable, that's very admirable. I like to help. And when people help me, well, that's a very good feeling indeed. I picked up the pace a little, slightly more confident about my carrot pulling abilities all of a sudden. And you tend to the animals as well. Yes. You've certainly got a lot of responsibilities. Right, it seems like the entire Abby's meals all rely on one Darcy and maybe Eustace helping her fight the ducks. There actually are not that many animals. I think even just a few ducks might be too much for me to handle. The ducks are friendly, so that helps. Other than that, we just have sheep, and that's a shared responsibility. Really? With who? A man from the village spends some time up here in a little house and helps with the sheep. That's interesting. I didn't know there were others living up on the hill with us. On this hill, just him, and he is a bit of a walk from us. It was strange, having a more in-depth conversation with Darcy. Her odd manner of speaking, I must confess, has belied the thoughtfulness with which she listened and responded. Her words came thick and slow like trickle, and sometimes it felt like any emotions they carried were delayed. Nonetheless, it was clear that she was lucid and intelligent. Just as much, if not more so, than anyone else I had spent time with so far at the convent. So I picked up my next questions carefully. It was a rare privilege to see you in the process of having a vision yesterday. Oh, right, yes. Was it now? Yes. That's a beautiful and powerful thing. I wish I could remember them. Eustace writes them down for you, doesn't she? Yes, but that's not the same. I do appreciate her doing that, but I wish I could keep track of them myself. You don't remember them at all afterwards? Not at all. You know, the ones you had yesterday was rather prophetic. Oh, really? Yes. I mean, fire, goat. It was perfectly accurate. Hehehe. I predicted your prank. Darcy, would you believe me if I told you that wasn't a practical joke I came up with? That I really saw a monster of some sort? And a goat? Probably not, but... Go on. I promise you I did. Well, you know me, I do think this place is haunted. But I'm not sure I've seen anything like that. It's a little haunted here, but not ghost sacrifice haunted. So that would be strange. I suppose a practical joke is more plausible. But if it wasn't your prank, whose could it have been? Well, that's just the thing. I don't know. An idea came to me in a flash. You think I could read Eustace's full journal about yesterday's vision? Perhaps there had been some other clue written down there that I had missed. Something that could help me determine what had really happened. Or at the very least, comfort me with the knowledge that I was not truly being pursued by ghosts or devils. Dunno. You'd have to ask her. Really? It's your vision. It's Eustace writing. Fair enough. There was a long pause. That was the end of that matter, evidently. So, does the abbey keep any goats? No goats, just sheep and ducks. I was just curious, honestly. I was under the impression that goats were common fixtures at abbeys. The same books that had led me to assume that the abbey I lived in would follow some sort of structural plan had also painted a rather specific picture of their inhabitants. The only thing I really remember is mostly like how, anything about baby Jesus would always have like a goat nearby in that little farm chat thing that they have. That's really the extent of my biblical knowledge. Not having any goats to tend to was at least not as egregious as condensing the hours. But it did complicate my understanding of what I had seen a night prior. Then again, I suppose Darcy would have noticed if a goat had gone missing. Would you like to meet one? Meet a... goat? Yes, because I can probably arrange that if you want to see a goat. They are very sweet and funny. The last time I saw a goat, it chewed on my sleeve and took a big hole out of it, and I had to give Moira to sew it back up. And then I had one sleeve with a slightly less fabric than the other sleeve, so it looked funny. That does sound very fun. But no, I was actually curious because... if I had seen a goat, where would it have come from? An impish grin crept over Darcy's face as she loaded carrots into the crate. I think I know where this is going. You've been having me on a bit, haven't you? We're working on a new practical joke. No. See, I knew you had to be joking when you said you saw a goat because there are no goats here, so you couldn't have seen one. But if you wanted to really get your hands on one for a new prank... Sister Hedwig, oh, that kinda scared me. Angela. I whipped around to see Angela looming over the vegetable patch, looking as icy as ever. Yes, Sister Angela? You were meant to be working in the library today. Instead, I've been looking all over for you. Yes, well, I finished my work early. I'm sure you must have done a superlative job. The superior wishes to speak to you before luncheon. I could taste a poison in those words, and I almost enjoyed it. Almost. I'm sure she wants to know how my first day of real work went. I was just helping Darcy with the carrots, and then I'll be on my way. I am to take you to her. Now. I stood up, brushing my hands off on my robe. I think I know my way to her office, if you'd like to exchange places. No, I don't think so. I was given a job to do. Yes, well, I was too. Oh? You're taking orders from Darcy now? It wasn't really an order. It's alright, Hedwig. I can take it from here. Wonderful. Let us be going then. I tossed Darcy an apologetic glance that I hope she caught as I followed Angela away from the garden. We walked in silence to the superior's office. Angela's presence usually made me feel meek, but something about helping Darcy had given me a small boost of confidence. I spent the walk imagining several witty and biting things I could say to Angela if she happened to speak. She didn't, of course, not until we arrived at the superior's door. Well, have a productive meeting. She made a show of turning on her heel and marching away briskly. I thought of a few more clever things I could have said before clearing my mind as best I could and knocked on the door. After yesterday's arguments with the superior, I had resolved to be as polite and demure as possible. I would speak to the superior with the respect her station demanded, and I would save any pithiness for an imagined sister Angela. The door swung open and the superior ushered me inside. We exchanged basic pleasantries before diving right into the heart of the matter. How was your first day of working in the library? It was more tumultuous than I expected, Your Reverence. Really now, I wouldn't have expected Eustace to be a particularly difficult person for you to work with. I suppose I have a lot to live up to. Everyone's expectations make me nervous. I sympathize. Try not to let it bother you, however. The most important expectations here are mine. Man, that is so... entitled much? Yes, Your Reverence. Try not to be nervous. You are performing admirably for me so far. Of course, Your Reverence. She is sounding kind of like how do you say this? Like a smug or patronizing. Yeah, that's the word. Kind of patronizing. There is no need to overcorrect for your insolent outburst yesterday. Speak to me as you would anyone else. Yes, Your Yes. I bowed my head a little. Truth be told, I was getting increasingly frustrated with how arbitrary every little application of a tradition around here was. I was being admonished for speaking properly now after I had been so rude. Honestly. Anyway, we are going to take a walk. Right now? Yes, it's time you met the accused. I'm looking forward to this. Won't it be fairly obvious that we're gone? Everyone else will be busy finishing their morning work or preparing luncheon. Outside of creeping away to the hospitalum in the dead of night, there is no time like the present for us to leave unannounced. I see. The idea did not thrill me. Then again, speaking with James had been my idea in the first place, so I had little room to object. Does anyone else know? Of course not. She opened the door and held it up for me. In the best circumstances at this point in time, the Abbey felt strange and alien to me still. Knowing that we were attempting to slip out without anyone else noticing, however, made the place feel actively hostile. I jumped at every mid-morning shadow and held my breath passing every blind corner, even though the superior walked ahead of me. The building seemed to be more disrepaired the further from the cloister we got. The wall protecting the side of the abbey was downright shabby. Breaks lay in the grass and moss was bursting out of the mortar. Is the hospital not part of the abbey? It was built much further away than is useful, I must say. Are you all right? You're a bit pale. It had just struck me that I was about to leave the confines of the abbey hardly a day after being ripped away from my cell. Compared to my organized existence in that small room, the corridors and cloister already felt like a whole new world. Stepping beyond those walls felt like a whole new level of transgression. I'm all right. If nothing else, it was quite beautiful out here. From here, I could see that a thick fog encircled the tor the abbey was built upon, almost as if it were nestled in the eye of a great storm. Down a steep hill, I could just barely make out the nearest village. Man, this is so high up, I think. Hills East, Limbaro, Tor. The little buildings were situated on the edge of a lake so large that it disappeared into the mist. We're so far from the village. It's rather strange. Truthfully, what isn't strange around here? True. But even the architecture is not what I would have expected. Imagine finding out in the future episodes maybe, that the abbey was initially built on lands that were once, or well, basically what I want to say is like lands with blood spilled on, or perhaps the abbey itself was built for devil worship. Things like that. I had noticed, actually, that the abbey's buildings don't quite line up with St. Gall's plan. Or the Romanesque plan. Our abbey was built in somewhat curious circumstances, I am told. I would believe it. It was evidently not laid out by a master architect. Do you have any idea why? Because it would have cost a great deal more money to build it properly, I suspect. Money is no object when it comes to houses of worship, surely. That is sadly not how it works. Often it falls to a generous benefactor to find a new community. The great halls of Kirkstall, for example, were paid for by a lord. Bungay Priory was paid for by a countess. Limbaro Tor, well, I like to know, to tell you the truth. No one knows. You don't know who actually funded this place? No. I am not the first abbess and hopefully not the last. The history of our community has not been particularly well recorded. I hope you can improve that once we are free of this foul mystery. I turned to look at the monastery from a distance. Even from far away, I could see that it was fairly dilapidated, oddly situated, and altogether somewhat crooked. How old is it? I'm afraid I don't know that either. Monasteries serve many purposes. Wayhouses, centers of learning and study, beacons of spiritual guidance for local communities. Limbero is none of these. I would quite like to see it become one day. Another reason why our mission is of the utmost importance. This place is falling apart, Sister Hedwig. I understand. The superior nodded and we continued walking to the hospitalum. Oh, I'm excited. What will be there? What is in store for us? Can't wait to see, to be honest. It's such a creepy little house. Is it just me, or are all medieval houses shaped like this? So pointy. The hospitalum was an odd little building, so it's not just me then. It looked like a piece of the chapel that had been broken off and placed in the middle of a field with nothing but a beaten path, indicating that it was meant to be part of any larger community. I was somewhat relieved that it was not readily visible until we have crested a small hillock during our walk. We did not go in through the front door. Oh? Instead, the superior bade me to follow her around to the back of the building to a smaller door. I could see a hole where the wall of the building met the ground as we walked past. This really was a haphazardly constructed place. Watch the stairs. They are quite steep. She produced the same keyring that had taunted me so when I heard it in my cell, and it was impossible not to gasp as the door swung open and I saw what lay inside. Oh God. A stone staircase led down into what looked like a cellar, only there were iron bars splitting the room in half. Oh. I got scared because I thought that, I don't know if you guys can see it. No, you guys can see it, but I need to show it to you. Oh, okay. I'm gonna show it to you guys. So, I thought this circle, and then this larger circle, was a body. Shoot! I clicked it! I'm sorry, I clicked it. I jumped as a figure scurried out of the dark corner of this horrible room. He looked panicked, slightly younger than I, to be sure. His clothes were rumpled and his hair was messy. There was a putrid stench lingering in the room that I did not want to guess the source of. He might have had a boyish charm under better circumstances, but imprisonment had clearly taken its toll. I was struck with a rush of pity when our eyes met. He rushed forward, throwing himself against the bars and gripping them with bloodied fingers. Bloodied fingers! He pressed his face between them to bring us as close as together as he possibly could. Oh, thank God. Step back, boy, if only a little. I couldn't bend these bars. Believe me, I've tried. Nevertheless. His eyes darted between the superior's and my own a few times before he relented. He took a step back and breathed deeply. He really was a pathetic sight to behold. This is Sister Hedwig. She would like to ask you some questions. Questions? What bloody questions could you possibly ask? Did you kill Sister Katherine? No, I didn't kill no one. He paused for a moment, looking me up and down, and then turned to the superior. That's it? You've held me here for how long, had me wait in this shithole while you promised to get me help? And you bring me another nun to ask the same goddamned questions I've answered over and over. Have you no shame? He's crying. I really don't think he was responsible, unless he is a superb actor. I'm sorry. If you were, I wouldn't be locked up in here. Hedwig, I will wait outside. Conduct your questioning with some haste, so we can be back in time for luncheon. What do you want? You're sure you did not kill her? You promise? What good is my word? You've already decided. You have no evidence, but neither do I. Well, it would matter to me. The mouth that lies kills the soul, as it is written. Aye, that they do. Are you a God-fearing man? As much as anyone around here is. Then you would promise me you did not kill Katherine? It doesn't matter what I promise. Promise me! The stable boy recoiled in shock. I was surprised myself. I had stamped my foot down so hard it had kicked up dust from the filthy cellar floor, and it lingered in the air for a while as the young man and I stared at each other. I promise, I swear to you, I never killed nobody, least of all some poor woman. I believe you. Fantastic. And where does that leave us? I have more questions. Of course you do. Why were you here that night? I made the mail and supply deliveries sometimes from the village. At night? Not usually, no. I had forgotten something. A letter. I saw it laying in the dirt when I got to the bottom of the hill and came back first thing next morning to deliver it. What was in the letter? How should I know? I'm no murderer, and I'm not a thief neither. Of course, that was a silly question. From where I was standing, all your questions are worth just the same. I want to get you out of here. I want to help. You lot keep saying that, but if you wanted to help, you could just open that door and set me free. Let me go home. I don't have the key. That you could call your bloody superior down and have her do it. I can't. She wouldn't. Then how can you help me? This isn't fair. This isn't right. Isn't this a convent? Why do you witches even have a dungeon? A dungeon? He raised an honest point. For extreme situations like this, I suppose. Honestly, I thought the hospitalum was a hospital. Now it's just a jail cell. Will I ever see a judge, or do you lot still have to do the ordeals around here? I don't know. Fat lot of good your help is to me, then. I want to prove your innocence. Who to? To everyone. Your superior says she believes me as well. If you believe me, that's well and good, but clearly something else is keeping me here. Who am I meant to answer to instead of a jury? I'll tell you what I think. I don't think you believe me at all, you or her. I think you're keeping me calm before you put me down, like a lame horse. Superior! Mother Superior! The door swung open after a moment. Are you finished? No, I have a question for you, actually. Very well. Why can't we just let him go? I would have thought that was obvious. Justice must be done one way or another, lest we risk open revolt from the other sisters. They want blood one way or another. What? So what happens next if you don't prove my innocence? The bishop will decide. The bishop? Yes, he has been informed of the general situation. When he makes his usual visit at the end of the month to deliver the sacraments, he will deal with it, along with any other business. So no matter what, somebody is going to be handed over to him? Yes, and I want it to be the right person. I will wait outside once more for you two to finish up. Do hurry. This is hopeless. You're no constable. Please, help me do my best. Tell me the whole story of the morning you were caught. Don't overlook any details. Very well. I arrived late with that missing letter, and I noticed that the sister I normally hand them off to wasn't where I would normally find her. Which one? Katherine? Or Eustace? Where is that? The library. She did a lot of writing, as far as I know. Did you check anywhere else? Well, I didn't want to overstay my welcome, especially at night. Didn't he say he came in the morning, but they keep talking about it as if it happened at night? I actually cannot remember. Was it the morning or the night where she was dead? But in any case, I will go with night for now. I wouldn't dare poke my head into the dorms, but she wasn't in the misery what's it neither. Who did you end up giving the letter to? I don't know everyone's names. I don't know your name, even. It's Hedwig. Sister Hedwig. James Foreman. I wish I could say it was a pleasure. James offered me a grim, humorless smile. I was looking for someone else to give it to for a bit. I don't know the place very well. And you couldn't have just, I don't know, left it on a table somewhere and gone home? Well, that's just it, see? I couldn't. A job halfway done is worse than not done at all, my old man always said. That's very astute. Allow me a little dignity. Thank you kindly, ma'am. I was looking around for someone to ask for help when someone grabbed me and said they'd caught me. I know you don't know anyone's name, but who? Can you describe her? Well, she was stern, I suppose. Beaky, if you'll excuse me saying. I don't know what beaky means. Angela? Well, yes, I guess Angela is really the only stern one around. Could also be Eustace. She kinda gives me that vibe sometimes. Yes, I think I remember one of the others calling her that. It's all quite a blur after that, if I'm being honest. I was scared of my wits as soon as she nabbed me. What about the blood on your tunic? Blood? What blood? Your tunic was bloodied. That was one of the first things I was told. I left my tunic in the cart. I was only here to deliver a letter. Explain. I hadn't worn my tunic since the day prior, I swear to you. I wasn't wearing no tunic when Angela grabbed me by the ear. We stared at each other in silence for a moment. I wanted to believe him, but that required believing that there was a much deeper conspiracy at work than I could have imagined. We were both so still that I could hear the wood above us creaking and bending. It was almost as if the building itself was breathing. Finally, the silence was broken by the door atop the stairs opening. Are you satisfied? We should go back soon. I'm not satisfied whatsoever. Someone is framing him. For what? We cannot miss luncheon. Have you seen it? Have you seen my tunic? What is he talking about? His tunic, the one covered in blood. He says he wasn't wearing it the morning he was found. Impossible. I saw the thing myself. It's ghastly. I swear I wasn't wearing it. It's true. Damn you. Someone is lying. I have seen it. It is indeed bloodied, and I can have Eustace pull it out of the storage to show you. However, I'm being betrayed. Set up. Anyone could have gone to my cart and taken it. Then, if it is playing out the way he said it did, someone would have to know that he went up to deliver the letter. Someone would have had to know that he would come back and take the letter. There are two possible scenarios where this could take place. One is that they knew that James is someone with very good work ethic, and he would definitely come back just to deliver the letter again. Or, secondly, would be that someone planted the letter there so that they could set him up, and that's probably more likely than knowing James's background. You were only there for a short while, no? Did you pass anyone on your way from the cart to the library? No, I didn't. Then it's just your word against a bloody tunic. I must say, it's not very convincing. You said you believed me. And I do, but I'm not the one who needs convincing, unfortunately. You are! I hear those keys jingling. Just let me go. You'll never hear from me again. I'll run away. Find another job somewhere. You will do no such thing. Curse both of you then. Some help you are. Is there anyone you know here who you think might have it out for you? I just can't imagine anyone doing such a horrible thing. I don't think it's someone who was trying to set James up, but more specifically, probably someone who wanted Katherine dead, or to send a message to the monastery. And that's why I feel like Katherine is wrapped up, or was wrapped up, in some serious trouble. No. Well, that will have to do for now. I hope you learned something useful, Hedwig, for all our sakes. Wait. There's one more thing that might help my cause. Someone can vouch for me not wearing that tunic that morning. It'll be Angela, right? Who? Oh? Sister Katherine? The other one. I thought you didn't pass anyone on the way in. She was in the library when I went up to find Katherine. The other Katherine, God rest her. Well, it certainly is not much, but it might be a start. Thank you, Mr. Foreman. Has word been sent back down to the village about why I'm gone? Yes. That's good, I suppose. And have you had any word back? I have not. Shame that. He looked utterly defeated, so much so that I could not bear looking at him any longer. A small part of me wanted to wrench the keys from Mother Superior's hand and free the wretch myself. Ma'am, you had me promise you I was telling the truth, and I did. Will you promise to find whoever did this to me? I can't promise that. I can't promise what I don't know is possible. Do you promise you'll try? Please? Yes, I promise I will do my utmost. We bowed to the poor young man and headed back up to the precarious staircase to the outside world. I dared not turn around to see his expression as we left. I could not bear it. Poor guy. The superior and I didn't speak on the walk back to the abbey. I was torn between feeling curious about the wide world I had stepped into and worrying that someone in the stone buildings ahead of us was watching. I half expected an arrow to come sailing over the wall and strike me dead in the chest. However, almost as soon as this gory image crossed my mind, the fog between us and the monastery thickened. I found this comforting, as if I was, perhaps, being watched over by God on my wretched quest. How very silly of me. The thought carried me for a little while, though. All covered with thin plaster? What? Oh, kitchen. Luncheon is gonna be late today. I see. What happened? Well, a cat happened, I think. After a brisk walk through the grounds, the superior and I had approached the rectory. According to her, we had made perfect time. However, the rectory hall was empty when we arrived. Now Darcy was explaining to an increasingly bewildered superior that Limbarrow had yet another mystery within its walls. A cat? I was roasting a duck when I heard some rustling, and then some pots fell over behind me. Oh dear. It could have been a ghost, and I was wondering if it was a ghost at first, but then I heard it meowing, so it was probably a cat. That is a relief, at least. Could be both. Anyway, while I was picking up the pots, I think it tried to eat the duck because I heard it yowling and then it ran out the door. Poor thing. Probably singed its whiskers. It's a disgusting little creature and I wouldn't have it bringing the plague in here. That's probably why, no one likes cats around here. But, Didn't Angela suspect that Katherine has a cat? But Katherine seemed to hate cats too. And if it's not a cat, then what is it? I am not taking any chances. I'm making a new lunch, that's why it'll be late. Good. Is someone looking for the vermin? Eustace? Godspeed to her. Is everyone else informed of the delay? Nearly everyone was milling about outside the rectory ready for lunch, so I had to disappoint them. I think Adela and Marta are still in the cellars. And I suppose Moira was on her way to bell duty. Well, it seems like everything is in order. I look forward to the meal. She nodded at Darcy, who didn't seem to be paying her any attention, and then ducked out of the kitchen. Yes, Soup, everything is in order. That's why someone died. What? Oh my goodness. What does that mean? She seems very angry. Oh dear, I'm so sorry. You are all right, my friend. I just wish she wouldn't pretend nothing is hanging over all of us at the moment. I understand. Well, what can you do? Some people are just detached from it all. Do you need any help cooking? I have it in order, but thank you for the offer. You were already a big help with the carrots this morning. I gave Darcy a little bow and stepped out of the kitchen. I heard the bell, but there's no food. Oh, there was an incident in the kitchen, so things are going to be late today. No, I know, but the bell just rang, so... Hello, you two. Ready for lunch? No, actually, it's going to be late today, apparently. Oh no, and I already rang the... Yes. Oopsie daisy, I've been so busy today. Me too. Oh, really? What have you been up to? Well, after service this morning, I felt tired, so I took a nap. She is so busy. Oh no, were you up late again last night? What do you mean, again? Hehehe, oh come now, I know you. Don't listen to her, she's crazy. Moira laughed and pulled Flora into a one-armed hug, which Flora seemed to appreciate very little. Given that we had both seen Flora emerge from the Misericorde last night, it seemed that Moira was entirely correct, although I was determined not to take sides. Have either of you seen a cat? Supposedly that's the villain responsible for the lunch delay. A cat? Would we even need one? I've never seen a mouse here. Darcy said one got into the kitchen and was knocking things around. Got too close to the fire. Poor little creature. It's just a cat. Do you like cats, Hedwig? I don't know, really. I imagine they're quite sweet. Oh, of course, silly me, always forgetting. You've never seen a cat? I suppose she wouldn't have ever had one in her cell. Oh, right. Well, they're, a bit creepy. I think. Oh, Flora doesn't like cats. Or she's scared of cats. I wouldn't know. The devil plays with a sinner like the cat does with a mouse, after all. Come to think of it, are there any cats in the Bible? Only one, actually. Mentioned offhand in the letter of Jeremiah as part of Barak. Huh? Goodness, you really are a scholar. Hold on. What about lions? What about them? Never mind. Oh. I flushed red. It was deeply embarrassing to be bested this way, and especially by Flora. What happened? I wasn't even sure she had actually read the Bible. Well, it just goes to show all of us have places we could brush up on in our understanding of the scripture. Indeed. Hehehe. I smiled weakly at the pair of them and took my leave. I was feeling quite strained after the morning's stressful events, and I wasn't sure how much more social interaction I could handle before eating. I was angrier than I should have been about Flora's observation about lions. Angry at her or myself, I wasn't quite sure. Either way, I certainly did not feel up to the task of playing Inquisitor with Katherine. I decided to go for a stroll around the paths between the rectory and the garden. I had been surprised by Darcy's shocking outburst, relatively at least, as soon as the superior had been out of earshot, but I was now finding myself agreeing with her. In total, the events of the past 2 days, day and a half really, had been unlike anything I could have possibly imagined while whittling away the hours in my cell. You find it mad too? I had seen a ghost or devil in front of my very eyes the night before. Yet here I was, wandering about the Abbey grounds, overwhelmed by the prospect of talking to any more human beings for a little while. We all need a little time to ourselves to recharge. The others had not believed me when I told them about the monstrous apparition, and it was that doubt, I think, that might have kept me from unraveling completely. At that moment, the most terrifying prospect in front of me was sharing a meal in a room with someone who, potentially, had stolen a man's tunic to cover up a vicious murder. But then, surely, all of that paled in comparison to what I had seen the night prior. An impossible creature, threatening me with its blade before disappearing without a trace. If I held either of these scenarios in my head for too long, the grim tangibility of Sister Catherine's murder, or the possibility that I had seen some kind of devil with my own eyes, I felt faint. No, I felt worse than faint. I felt like St. Vincent on the rack, having to choose exactly which end of myself I'd prefer to have burned, one thought at a time. Are you writing any of this down, by the way? Not that I'd mind if you did. She might not approve, though. She? I hear she holds quite fast to her rules, despite all appearances. Hee. Ooh, what? Anyway. No, not anyway. How can you leave me hanging like that? So, there is someone that is integral to the story that we still don't know. Maybe Catherine's not dead. Who knows? Who knows? While wondering, I found myself at the door to the chapel. I felt compelled to enter. What better place to collect myself? If anything could ease my mind at this point, it would be a moment's prayer. With some difficulty, I swung open the heavy door. I strolled through the aisle, taking a moment to gaze up at the high ceiling. To feel at peace, or just a We have got to stop meeting like this. Ah! Sorry. It can be a little shadowy in here. That's quite alright. I am just learning that I am easily startled since leaving my cell. Nobody could blame you for that. How are you adjusting today? Did you start writing? I did, as a matter of fact. Lovely. Eustace wasn't too hard on you? No. Liar. That's good. I'm sure you'll end up locking horns eventually, so be ready. Locking horns? Really? Eustace seems so quiet, generally. She is, but it's very easy to rile her up. Especially if you disagree with her about something. She and Katherine used to bicker a lot, I take it? Oh, endlessly. Especially about chronicling. That gives Eustace a motive. Margaret extended a hand to the pew nearest to us. Care to sit? Of course. We sat down together. Margaret gazed at the pulpit briefly before continuing. Eustace is very intelligent, and Katherine was too. And intelligent people sometimes enjoy having a go at each other for sport. It's how they show affection. What on earth would Katherine write that would irritate Eustace so much? I didn't read much of her chronicling, to tell you the truth. I don't think anyone here does. The job is really about writing something down for people to argue about years later. I suppose if we were living here, reading about it wouldn't be very interesting. Katherine had the same thought. She wrote about all kinds of things. I am meant to do that as well, I think. The letters? Yes, those were her sticking points. I think you're meant to just copy them word for word to mark time, but Katherine would go quite deep on some of them. There was one instance, a couple of years ago. Yes? Actually, no, I thought of a better one. Have you ever heard of Rheims Cathedral? No, actually. It's a very big cathedral in France. One of the biggest, in fact. It's quite grand. Anyway, it was damaged in a great fire, and Katherine was meant to write that down. Instead, she demanded to write a letter to the municipality over the smallest detail. There was a note in the letter about how the King of France had granted the city an octroi, and that funds for repairs were coming from a tax on salt. What? That was more or less what everyone else said. Katherine was furious, though. What on earth for? Well, certainly, I think none of us would have noticed, but she had a point. France taxes salt very heavily, and Katherine thought it was highly unfair that the building was going to be repaired with money she said was being stolen from the poor. I must admit that this is completely beyond my understanding. I feel like I have a better understanding of Katherine as a person now. Everyone needs salt, and everyone in France is taxed on it equally. It's how you make food survive the winter, for one thing, but it's an incredibly useful and valuable thing. I dread to think how much we spend on salt here, to tell you the truth, but mercifully, we don't have to pay quite the same way that the French do. It just seems like a petty thing to pick at. The building needed repairing. Yes, but Katherine was beside herself for days. I remember her stalking around the halls, muttering to herself in very poor French. I'm not gonna try to pronounce that, which was meant to be "damn your spires" or some such. Eustace forbade her to write it in a letter to the diocese on the subject. She was going to tell the diocese, "Damn your spires"? Margaret threw her head back and laughed, clearly enjoying a fond memory. The diocese? No, she was demanding to send a letter to the king. My goodness. Katherine sulked for days after Eustace told her off for that one. All over a building. It isn't about the building, it's about the very soul of the church, is what Katherine would tell you. She really found it distasteful that the repairs would be built at the expense of the people's basic needs, and wanted to make that known to anyone she could with a say in the matter. It wasn't the only time she got herself worked up over a building either. She heard about the last remaining ruins of the lighthouse of Alexandria being paved over to build a way for it. And she spent a whole week badgering Adela, asking if she knew enough Arabic to help her write a letter of complaint to the Sultan. I can understand her position, just it seems so rootless. It sounds rather cruel to put it that way, but... Margaret grinned and shifted in her seat to face me. That's the essence of most of the arguments Katherine got into around here. You're not wrong, but... and so on. It sounds quite exhausting. I suddenly felt my stomach drop. Not to speak any ill of her, I mean. Margaret laughed again. You're fine. People said far worse of her while she lived. Angela once accused her of writing her own 12 conclusions. I find it rather touching that she can still put people in awkward positions like this. Her influence reaches beyond the grave. Beyond the grave. Do you believe in ghosts? Spirits? That's quite a question. I apologize if it's a touch strange to ask, just... You're not the first person who has mentioned feeling Catherine's presence lingering to me or wished aloud for it. It's not a problem. But I should warn you that if this is an extension of your practical joke, the others are going to find bringing Katherine into the proceedings very distasteful. Would you believe me if I insisted that there was no prank? I would be curious to know what other explanation you could give. If you really saw what you claimed to see, why are you still here? Why didn't you start running and stop only when you reached the next village over? I'm still mulling over the idea of running, to tell you the truth. But I don't think I could. That's interesting. Believe it or not, that makes me slightly more inclined to accept your story. Really? Very slightly. I have no explanation for what I saw, only that I saw it, a real monster, menacing me with a wicked blade. It sounds absolutely chilling. The thing is, if I ran, where would I go? 2 days ago, I hadn't been outside of my little room. I feel like if I left, you'd be experiencing the same confusion 10 times over. Yes, that's a good way to put it. The devil, you know. I understand the feeling. But you don't believe I actually saw anything? You don't accept the existence of ghosts at all? Evil spirits and the like? I was practically begging for a reassurance at this point. I wouldn't say that. I saw something once, in the cellar, late at night. A little devil with bulbous eyes and malformed teeth. In the cellars? But don't you sneak down there to raid the pantry some nights? Well, as I said, the devil, you know. And sometimes I get quite hungry. You're pulling my leg, aren't you? Now, why would I do something like that? We sat in silence for a moment. Finally, Margaret stood up and stretched her arms above her head. I think that's enough for off that seat for now. Luncheon will still be a bit, correct? Let's go for a walk, you and me. Certainly. She walked briskly out of the chapel. I was too slow to help her with the large wooden doors, but she managed quite well enough on her own. She ushered me past and then took a step ahead as the door closed. Margaret wanted to lead me somewhere, and I could not guess where. To tell you the truth, I have always had mixed opinions about the existence of ghosts. I've seen so many things that end up being tricks of the lights. Figures in the fog, that sort of thing. For years, the knocking and scraping in the walls here kept me up at night. Just like the one that Hedwig is experiencing. But these buildings are very old and not particularly well built. That's the sort of thing I like to try and comfort myself with as well. But it's a bit different when you're all alone at night, isn't it? Yes. So you do believe me? Perhaps I do, perhaps I don't. But either way, there is something I'd like to show you. We were walking up the stairs to the second floor. Hold on. We're going to need a candle for this. She jogged into the dormitories and after a moment emerged with a lit candle on a pricket. Come with me. She took me down the hall towards the intersection where I had seen the sword-wielding specter. There's no blood or anything here. We already looked. We're going a bit further than that. My heart jumped into my throat. Are we going down the hall to my cell? Just about. Oh, that's a scary place. We walked together quietly for just a little while. This hall has always made me feel uncomfortable. For a moment, I felt affronted that Margaret would even dare talk about what this hall might make her feel in my presence, but I suppressed the urge to chastise her. Nonetheless, walking down this hallway felt more precarious than my first encounter with the stairs. I take it you didn't come to the hedgehoscope very often then? Not for your advice, I'm afraid. We arrived at my cell. Margaret handed me the candle and began rapping her knuckles against the stone wall. Eventually, she found whatever she was looking for. She inserted her fingers between two of the old stones and pulled. To my shock, the wall swung open to reveal a passageway wide enough just about for one person. It's like a hidden door. What? There's passageways all over this place. That isn't what I wanted to show you, though. Is it suspicious enough that this monastery has, passageways everywhere? It feels like it was definitely meant for another purpose and not necessary for worship or anything. This abbey has a history, or its intent, or its construction was for something else entirely, not for worship or anything. Follow me. She took the candle back and entered the narrow tunnel. I followed her nervously. Most abbeys have passages like this because there needs to be some space between the walls. See? Oh, okay. It's an architectural thing. I think it helps the air as well. That's what my father used to say anyway. So this passageway isn't in and of itself particularly interesting. However, we kept walking until we finally came to a corner. Here we are. She took a few steps around the bend and beckoned me to join her. Like I was saying before, I've always been non-committal about things like luck and ghosts and curses and so on. But this always bothered me. And there has been too many things happening lately for me to discount it entirely. Parts of the abbey falling down, Katherine's death, and now your ghost. My ghost? Oh, the ghost that she saw in the dark. By this, you mean... Come closer. I'm scared. She held the candle out in front of her to better illuminate what she was referring to. I'm gonna place a bet. I'm gonna guess that it's some demonic symbol or a mark. But let's see. I try not to take this passage anymore, because this makes me nervous. Oh, I'm scared. I guessed when I realized what she was looking at. One of the bricks lying in the passageway had a detestable shape etched into it. What is it? I did not know what it was, but it filled me with enough dread just to look at that I knew it was wrong. Evil. My stomach churned as I remembered the superior's words to me about the provenance of the abbey. Was the construction of this place really so mysterious? How could something like this have been allowed to make it into the very walls of the building? The work of some possessed builder, no doubt. House of God built with no oversight and ill intent. I speak of it eloquently now, of course. However, in the moment, all I could do, all that I could master, was something far less considered. Oh my God! Margaret grinned wickedly. Steady on. What was it you told me about cursing? What is it? I don't know what it is. Now I'm so curious. I didn't speak a word the whole walk back to the chapel. I was deeply disturbed. I didn't know what that horrible symbol meant, and I didn't want to. One look at it was enough to tell me that something dark was at work within the walls. Something I did not want to meddle with under any circumstances. We arrived at the chapel doors, and Margaret turned to me. Cheer up. It's a bit grim, but I lived with it for ages. I try not to muck about with the unknown, and it doesn't muck about with me. Much, anyway. All that being said, I think I might take credit for the prank if I were you. Even if it wasn't you. Why would I do such a thing like that? I don't know. It just seems like something you want people to think you are capable of. You've got to keep people guessing. Yeah? You've got to make a name for yourself. I think I'll stick to being the chronicler. Oh, right. Yes. I forgot to mention it, but I'm sure you'll do great work at all that. You ask good questions. It might annoy Eustace, but I think that's critical for the job. I'm afraid most of my words since leaving the cell might have been questions. And I'm afraid I don't have quite the same verve that Katherine seems to have had. There is no need to worry about it. Don't write like Katherine. Write like Hedwig. Aww. I bowed my head, attempting to hide my flushed cheeks. My starved pride had allowed this sliver of compliment to rush to my head. I didn't feel too chuffed for long, though, because... Oh my god, what happened? A chapel bell had just begun to ring just above us, scaring me out of my wits. I must have jumped several feet into the air out of shock. Margaret was grinning ear to ear when I came back down to earth. I clutched my chest instinctively, doubled over, and tried to regain my composure. Sorry, the superior told me to run and ring the bell for luncheon. I didn't see you two there. I could hear her voice calling out to us from above, like some apologetic angel. Margaret called up in response, apparently unfazed. That's all right. How on earth did we miss you? I came in through the back door, the superior... Never locks it. Yeah. I really am so sorry, Hedwig. I didn't mean to give you such a scare. That's... quite all right. Moira? Now it's time for luncheon. I think I'm gonna end here for today, because a lot of things have happened, and I wanted to say this. It seems like Katherine, with a C, the dead Katherine, she was definitely someone who had a lot of influence on the sisters, and that even now, a lot of people still think of her and miss her dearly. Of course, it has only been 2 days since she died or was murdered, but maybe that's why people still miss her so much. But I also wanted to say that personally I believe that Katherine was mixed up in some dangerous situations. She was very much outspoken, which could have landed her in trouble with very powerful people. I mean, she wanted to write to the king and the sultan. What else would she have done? She is very concerned with the rights of the people. I think she's someone who very much upholds her morals and ethics and believes in justice. And honestly, she sounds like a very fantastic and wonderful person, but her own personal politics and her ethics might land her in hot water with a lot of powerful people, and many of them could have been responsible for Katherine's murder, to send a message to the world that if you are someone like Katherine, who is too nosy for her own good, who messes around and tells others what they can and cannot do as a lowly sister or woman even, then this is what will happen to you. Definitely, I believe that Katherine's body being displayed in such a gruesome manner, with her head decapitated and all, is to send a specific message to the people around. If someone just had a personal grudge against Katherine and killed her in the heat of the moment, they would have tried to dispose of her body, or basically just not take the extra time and effort to display her body outside. That is a really interesting and key point in the story, I feel. But yes, thank you so much for watching. Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. Do you agree that this is a message? I feel like it is. And more interestingly, do you guys believe in ghosts? I am on Margaret's side here. It's hard to say there is, but it's also hard to say that there isn't. It's kind of like the devil's proof, right? Thank you so much for watching. Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below, and I'll see you next time. Bye!